Peter, one of the things Todd talked about was the preparation leading up to the draft in terms of knowing who you'd go with under any scenarios. Did that play itself out tonight in terms of that practice and that preparation?
Yeah, I mean, we're down four picks, so it doesn't take a lot of rocket science to figure out who may be available at four. But what we started doing was, at one point, we started to look to move down. And while that was happening, we got the sense that maybe Poole Jarvie will drop. So we kind of backed off, and you kind of know what the other team's needs might be. And while there's some speculating, it happened that he was available. So we were fortunate. He's a big, strong kid, smart player, can shoot the puck. Happy to get him.
When he did drop to 4, was it a no-brainer at that point, or was there some deliberation?
No, he was. We were going off our list, and that's where we would have picked him. So there was no hesitation. No.
When he did drop to you at 4, why was there no hesitation? What were his attributes that made it a no-brainer for you, and why you're happy to have him in the organization?
Well, as I said, he's a big, strong kid. I believe he was the youngest MVP. I mean, his records this year were terrific. The youngest MVP of the World Junior. He may have the second most points in that tournament. He had a terrific tournament. He was lights out. Played at the men's level, had a very, very strong season. Had a very strong U18. I mean, we had him up in those upper echelon for all year. So.
Like you talked to Jarmo before that, though. Were you trying to move up to 3 to get him just in case?
Well, we were just looking at jockeying around whether it was moving up or maybe moving down, and seeing what you could maybe harvest from going down, and so maybe it's more common practice where we were and how the players laid out in their rankings. But yes, we talked about maybe moving up, and we talked about moving down also.
I think you'd spent several days talking about maybe moving this number 4 pick. I assume you end up unable to move it in a satisfactory deal. Now that you got this kid, is it pretty happy about that?
Yeah. I've said it's been difficult to get a defense, and we put 4 in a couple of scenarios that we moved along. At the end, one became very real, and it just didn't happen. Sometimes those things just don't happen. So, but at the same time, we were also looking to, today at least, we were looking to move up and down, and that's when you got the sense that, hey, this kid may drop. So you're a little conservative with that approach, then he drops. So we were fortunate.
How much did you talk to Jarmo about maybe moving up to that spot?
Well, I talked to Jarmo probably for the last week or two, and then we had more talks today. But I talked to 3 or 4 other GMs that were below also. So,
in terms of the search for a defenseman, how does it change once the draft is complete? Just the type of deals that might be there. Does it become more difficult, or is it you just resume?
Well, really, there was today. Really, there was only one deal that was involving the pick, so it doesn't really change it that much. You what happens is you tend to, you build momentum in these deals, and you think, let's get it done on draft day with the first day, but no, it's not essential that it gets done on draft day if it doesn't involve the pick, which is essentially what happened.
Spent a lot of time talking to Chuck Fletcher too. Was that over a defenseman? They have a few.
Oh well, you have a lot of conversations on the draft floor. I find it real productive to go, and that's why we get there early, and you can kind of button up some discussions, and that was one of them.
Do you feel any more confident after discussions today that you'll grab a defenseman before you leave here, or less confident, or where do you come home?
Not again, as I said, really there's only one deal that involved the pick today, so it'll be a good discussion day tomorrow. If something moves along where it's to the point where we have to execute a deal, we'll do it. But
another player as opposed to draft picks.
Well, as I said, tomorrow's a good day where you can talk to these guys. Maybe it's a little less stressful on player for player, because you're talking about the secondary picks now. So
Puljujarvi is a right winger, and he comes into the organization as a player many people feel will play in the NHL next year. Does that change the complexion on your right side with any significance for some of the holdovers there?
Well, he's if he's able to play, obviously he could bump someone out. So it gives us. I think one of you guys alluded to it earlier. It gives us a little more flexibility in our search for a defenseman. If that's the case, now I think he'll be ready to play, but big strong kid to do what he did, and that's how we project him. But you never know.
Looking at the history of it, a lot of Europeans talk about just that adjustment, not to the NHL, more so the ice surface, and it takes some time. He's got that option, like we see it with this year with Ranson in Colorado. Would that be an option to have him come to North America, even try the AHL for 30 games or something?
It might be. We had, when I was in Boston, we did it with Pasternak, and it worked out pretty well. And so it might be. I really haven't thought that much about it. We talked about certain scenarios with him when we interviewed him. And we'll talk more about that later.
What do you think he does best?
Well, I like his big, strong stride. He protects the puck very well. He shoots in traffic, and he can make plays too. Like he's not just a pure playmaker. Maybe he's a little bit more of a playmaker than a shooter, but he's got a real good wrist shot. Sees the ice well. He's a real versatile player. Like you don't accomplish what he's accomplished at the men's level and at the international level without being a real good player. He's obviously a real good player, but he does all this stuff, and he's a big, strong body, which I like.
Can you put into words this? Do you feel like good fortune of not even having to make a trade to get that guy? Kind of fell into your lap?
Teams have different needs, and he slid one pick, and I feel a little fortunate because we had him high. But you know what? Other teams may have other guys higher. We have we got a lot of centermen, so to have a winger come, it's nice, to be able to play with our centermen. So a little fortunate, but I mean sometimes these guys drop.
In terms of the timeline, Peter, like the sweet spot for getting a deal, making trades when it's easier. Does July 1st play into it at all? Is it better to try and get things locked up before then? Like, where's that kind of zone for trying to make?
Well, it kind of goes ebbs and flows. Like there's the shopping period now. Will start tomorrow, so you get a sense of some free agents. There's some teams that want to move before, as you alluded to, move before the market starts. So you just continue your conversations. You push along the deals. You see where maybe there's more urgency on the other side, and if that's the guy you want to get, you push that one. It's just I don't know. You just kind of grind along and wait to see what kind of which ones develop, and we've obviously got a list and it's ranked, but you got to play it by a little sense and feel also.
What is the scouting report on the mental makeup of this kid yesterday? What do the scouts tell you?
Being strong. He's a strong-minded kid. He comes from up north in his country, and we took him out for dinner at the combines. He looks like he's a real pleasant kid. He's got to learn the language. He shows leadership characteristics on the ice.
Peter, you had the 32, and then you got I think 3 right now in the third. Were you and Bob talking? Were you close at all to possibly moving into the late part of the first round?
Me and Bob?
Agreed, like talking.
Oh, okay. We had a little discussion, and there was maybe one instance when we might have tried to jump up from the second to the first, but the player wasn't picked, so we decided to hold off. So he may be available tomorrow.